All right, so first story we've got here. We'll start right off with the conflicts and kind of giving an update of where everything is. Nothing seems to be getting any better, obviously. We'll go to Israel, Iran. We'll go to China, Taiwan, and South Korea, North Korea. Before we jump into this, let me give a quick shout out to our sponsor today. This is from American Financing. One of the reasons, so I used to work, they have a script they sent me. I'm not going to read it. No offense to them. It's a very nice script, but I don't want to read it. I used to work for a financing company like this. When I got out of the military, I had a couple of random jobs. And then I worked for a company that was very similar to this, where they did refinancing on homes. And what they specialized in, what again, the company I used to work for, which is basically this company, it's the same as, what they specialize is they help you refinance your house, and you can use the equity to pay off your bills, whether it's credit cards or school loans or anything like that. And they do it in an interest rate that is about as good as you're going to get, because, as you know, the Jerome Powell just dropped rates by 0.5%. And then he's like, oopsie, look, inflation's still going up. We probably made a mistake. So they're probably not going to drop the rates down anymore. So it's probably going to be the best rate you're going to get for a while. So if you want to clean up things and kind of give yourself a fresh start, you can save upwards of $800 a month on average doing this kind of thing, which is like getting a raise of $10,000 a year. You can consolidate everything up and then get yourself back on the right track and clean things up. So reach out. The company's name, again, is American Financing. You can call or visit americanfinancing.net/bachelor here. Israel assures U.S. its plan to target Iran's military, not oil or nuclear sites, says a source, which you don't know if you can trust Israel on this, because everything Israel tells the United States, it seems like, is getting leaked over to Iran, and they know what's coming. So I think Israel and the U.S. tensions and diplomatic communication is not doing so well. From CNN, Israeli officials, including Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, have assured the United States that a counterstrike on Iran will be limited to military targets rather than oil or nuclear facilities, according to a person familiar with the discussions. President Joe Biden, who has conveyed in public his opposition to striking Tehran's nuclear and oil facilities, discussed Iran's plan with Netanyahu during a classified phone call last week. In the conversation, Netanyahu relayed to Biden his plan to hit military targets, the person said. Washington Post first reported that Netanyahu had reassured Biden of his plans to avoid nuclear and oil targets. Responding to that report, Netanyahu's office said it will consider U.S. options or opinions, but ultimately decide its response to Iran's October 1st attack based on its own national interests. And American officials say they were still closely coordinating with Israel as it decides how to respond. That, quote, we listen to the opinions of the United States, but we will make our final decisions based on our own national interests, Netanyahu's office wrote on X. The White House previously described the phone call between the leaders last week as productive and direct. It was their first conversation in nearly 2 months. Our commitment to Israel's defense is ironclad. We will not discuss private diplomatic discussions and would refer you to the Israel government to speak to their own potential military operations, a spokeswoman for the White House's National Security Council said Tuesday. Israel's deliberations over how to respond to Iran came at a moment of high tensions in the year-long conflict, which has expanded beyond Gaza into Lebanon. At the White House, officials have worked to limit Israel's retaliation to the barrage of ballistic missiles, hoping to prevent a wider war. Still, Biden and other top officials have maintained Israel has a right to respond and have said that they were in close communication and coordination with their counterparts as they mulled a decision. A strike on oil fields that could send energy prices soaring would be unwelcome weeks ahead of the U.S. election, officials have said, and hitting Iran's nuclear facilities could trigger full-blown regional war that Biden has desperately sought to avoid. Now, one of the interesting things, I think, is that, if you listen to Ben Shapiro and some other conservative voices that support Israel unwaveringly, they have suggested the best course of option would be to unleash the dogs of war and for the U.S. to full-throatedly support Israel and everything they want to do, give them everything they need to do, and let them completely destroy the opposition to the degree they wish. You've got several people that are quite frustrated and angry when you look at what has happened to the Palestinians and Palestine, for that matter. And the challenge comes when Hezbollah and some of these other organizations directly build their munitions and hide their tunnels and hide their weapons directly underneath hospitals and schools and residences and other things like that. This isn't a clean conflict in any way, shape, or form. And so the challenge is, do you go ahead and just destroy all the enemy hiding positions, even if you're destroying important infrastructure that the Palestinians need? That's the kind of the counter argument. And so they keep saying they want to find, and this is not Israel, but this is the United States and Palestine, or Palestinian organizations that are being represented by Western countries, such as, like the UK and many of these other countries are saying, we need to find a two-state solution. But when you listen to what Palestine and the leaders of Hezbollah, the leaders of Iran, state, they don't want a two-state solution. So Iran doesn't want one, Hezbollah doesn't want one, Palestine doesn't want one, Israel doesn't want one, and so the fighting must continue, and it's turning quite ugly. There's no easy answer to this, and because of it, you're seeing arguments occur online. You see protests, you see arguments, you see fights in major cities during marches and things like that, and it doesn't seem that this is coming to an end anytime soon. Now, by pulling in Iran, which uses Hezbollah and some of the other, like the PLO and some of the other terrorist organization, since they use them as kind of proxy wars, really this is Israel versus Hezbollah and Palestine and the Houthis and Iran and many other states. So it seems like it's kind of getting out of control. And to give you an idea, this is a segment. I wasn't planning to do this as a segment, but as I was searching around on the web earlier today, there's a YouTuber who's quite popular. He's got a couple million followers, and his name is Asmongold. And I don't know if any of you know him, but he does video games, but then he also delves into politics and he does movie reviews. He does YouTube channel reviews. And I think he started out as a World of Warcraft streamer, and he's just kind of expanded from there. And he gets quite a few views, and he's got about 2 million followers. And he finally got fed up and decided to make a statement about how he felt about the conflict. Now, I'm not saying that I agree, I disagree. I don't really know him that well, but I do know that once you stick your hand in this hornet's nest, you're going to be dragged into the middle. And the longer this war goes on, the more people, either in the entertainment world, like in Hollywood, people like YouTubers, people like news agencies, even our own government, seems to be putting themselves in a predicament where they need to choose a side. And if they choose poorly, they may get punished for it. I'm going to play this clip by Asmongold just so you can hear it, so you can kind of hear some of what happens to you if you speak out and for some reason you pick what others feel is the wrong side.
If you want to consider a genocide as a systematic killing of a group of people, they have genocide built into Sharia law right now. So no, I'm not going to cry a fucking river when people who have genocide that's baked into their laws are getting genocided. I don't give a fuck. They're terrible people. It's not even a question. It's crazy that people don't see it that way. They'd be doing the same thing. They're not able to kill as many people as Israel because they don't have as many bombs and as many weapons. But if they did, they'd be doing the same thing. That's it. Just takes enough. That's right. These people are not your allies. They are not the same as us. They come from an inferior culture that is horrible. It kills people for their identity, and it is directly antithetical to everything Western values stand for, and it is an inferior culture in all ways. It is that simple. No, I don't feel bad for them. I don't feel sorry for them. I don't care.
Well, he obviously decided to choose sides, and his Twitch channel has, because of it, been banned. It may be temporary, it may be full term, nobody knows, but he came out and spoke on one side, not the other, and he's been banned from Twitch. And he comes forward and issues his apology. Looking back on it, I was way too much of an asshole about the Palestine thing. My bad. Of course, no one deserves to have their life destroyed, or even if they do things or have views I find regressive. You guys deserve more than me saying stupid shit like that. I'll do better. Boy, that kind of apology sounds familiar, doesn't it? He's gotten 16,000 likes and 11,000 comments, 12,000 comments now. Literally just refreshed as I read that number, and almost 6,000 retweets. And this is what I said. I've got a couple of responses. But this is what's important, because we were this way with Ukraine and Russia. If you didn't come out in full-throated support of Ukraine, then you're I don't know, a Russian apologist or a Putin apologist. If you don't come out and support Israel, you're this. And if you don't come out and support Palestine, you're that. And this just is, it's more ants fighting in a bucket rather than looking at our governments that are the ones that are getting us into all this trouble and are pushing us down this road. I simply said, pick a side or stay out of it. Taking one side and then crying you chose wrong makes everyone on both sides hate you. Good luck, you'll need it. Either pick a side and stick with it, and stick to your guns, and stick to your principles, and be a man about your decision, or stay out of it, and don't pick a side at all. Because otherwise you're going to get yourself in hot water. Jeremy at the quartering said that was a quick apology. They won't forgive you, by the way. The replies are proving it. And that is correct. This is exactly what happens when you decide to dive into these ants' nests. And I've even felt it myself. Because when I've mentioned in my videos, like I don't like the war going on, I don't like any war. I want men to be safe, and men not dying to a drone in the middle of a field as they're on their knees praying that today's not the day they're going to die. And then you see, some, 25-year-old kid sitting somewhere off the battlefield flying a drone loaded with C4 into a vehicle they're in, or into them as they run across a field and blow their legs off as they bleed out. That's what bothers me. When you look at it at that level, at that ground level, when you see men dying to the hands of other men that may not even want to be there, I start caring a whole lot less about the regimes that are pushing the pawns around the playfield, and I start looking at the pawns, wanting the pawns to stop dying. That's what I care about. And I mentioned this, and all of a sudden I got people calling me I'm either a Putin apologist or I like Israel, or I support it. You just can't. So the best way to do, I've found, is just read the news and say, there you go, and move on to the next thing. Because almost everything we have in society today, and I'm going off on a tangent, I'm going off on a rant, but this is important. Almost everything we have today puts us in a fight with other citizens or other people in the world. You like Elon, you hate Elon. Okay, you're fighting. You like Trump, you like Kamala, you're fighting. You're black, you're white, you're fighting. You're gay, you're straight, you're fighting. You're man, you're woman, you're fighting. You're pro-Israel, you're pro-Palestine, you're pro-Ukraine, you're pro-Russia. It's always having us at each other's throats over all of this shit. In the meantime, we can't pay our bills. Our government is drowning us in debt. They're getting us into conflicts we don't really want to be into. That when you say, I just want to be a populist and protect my nation and take care of my people first, well, you're racist because you want to close the border. It's always something. And it's tiring. So what I really hope is going to happen is Israel and Palestine get this shit ironed out ASAP. I don't have the big answers. I don't know what that's going to look like. Apparently, neither does the Biden administration. Neither does Kamala Harris. Neither does Israel. Neither does Ukraine. Neither does Russia. But we got to figure something out, because these forever wars, people talk about the economies. People talk about the trade supplies. They're never talking about the guys that are dying in a cold, water-filled ditch for some rich person 3,000 miles away that doesn't give a shit about them. And that's the part I care about. That's what bothers me. Yes, all of this stuff bothers me. I want it to stop. It's a very childish view on it. Oh, I want world peace. It doesn't work that way, I understand. But it doesn't seem like we ever work for peace. It's like we're always looking to find somebody to poke in the ribs and get them angry, so we have another conflict because of the war machine and Halliburton and General Dynamics and all the other Lockheed Martin and all the rest. It pisses me off. And now we've got China is now doing war games around Taiwan. And they do this quite often, so it's not necessarily escalating anything, but it is saber rattling. China's trying to get Taiwan to provide these very high-end, expensive, very powerful chips to China, because Taiwan said that they're not going to send them to China. They're only sending them to the West. And China's getting pissed off about it. But if China attacks, well, Taiwan has already said they're going to blow all the chip-producing factories, and then China won't have any of them, and neither will we. And so that's kind of what's kept them at bay. But from the news just 38 minutes ago, record-breaking 153 Chinese warplanes flew around Taiwan in war games meant as wargaming. They say over 150 planes flew around Taiwan on Monday. They say the drills, called Joint Sword 2024B, involved joint forces simulating surrounding Taiwan, blockading ports, striking targets, and executing assaults. Taiwan's Ministry of Defense reported Tuesday that it detected 153 Chinese People's Liberation Army aircraft operating around and in Taiwan's air defense identification zone on Monday. 111 of the aircraft, Taiwan said, crossed the median line and entered Taiwan's ADIZ. The figure was illustrated as a record-breaking number. and they have it here. Earlier Monday, Taiwan's defense ministry reported 125 Chinese aircraft sorties conducted by 72 aircraft, with 57 entering the de facto ADIZ. Taiwan's military has said repeatedly that it's been monitoring the activities and responding accordingly. In response to the large Joint Sword 2024B drills, Taiwan dispatched combat air patrol aircraft and naval vessels and employed its coastal missile systems. Chinese military aircraft incursions across the median line into Taiwan's ADIZ have become normal activities in recent years, changing a long-held status quo, with China dispatching military planes as an almost daily occurrence. The activities prompt Taiwan to exhaust its military and resources to constantly monitor the incursions, and it fuels China's campaign to pressure and intimidate Taipei. The Chinese Joint Sword exercises are assessed to be in response to National Day speech that Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te delivered on October 10th. The Chinese military called the drills a stern warning. Chinese military media, citing Senior Captain Li Ji, a spokesperson for the PLA Eastern Theater Command, said that the drills were focused on subjects of sea-air combat readiness patrol, blockades on key ports and areas, assaults on maritime and ground targets, as well as joint seizure of comprehensive superiority. Beijing also said the exercise aimed to resolutely foil the Taiwan independence separatist attempts. China claims Taiwan as its own and has not ruled out using force to bring the island democracy under its jurisdiction. Now, one of the things that this saber rattling does is it kind of puts everybody on alert, and it's a way to see what the United States response is. I don't have any doubts that as we close in on the final days of the election, and maybe even between the election and the inauguration, it wouldn't surprise me if China decides to make a move on Taiwan. This is something they've wanted to do for a while. If it's going to be the Kamala Harris presidency, I think it's great timing for them. They'll get started on it. Biden's not doing very well. He's kind of mashed potatoes. And so it gives them an opportunity to perhaps even take Taiwan in its entirety in the 2 months between the election and the inauguration. If it's going to be Trump, they may make that leap anyway to see if they can make this happen before Trump gets into office, when he might step in with some fresh ideas to make something happen. The same thing may happen in Russia and Ukraine, and the same thing may happen in Israel and Iran. It's hard to tell. And now we've got South Korea. South Korea and North Korea are kind of getting into it. Apparently, somebody in South Korea flew drones over North Korea. It got North Korea upset, and so they then decided to blow up the border roads between North and South Korea. So now South Korea responds to that by firing warning shots after North Korea blew up the roads. They say this is in London, from ABC News London and Seoul. South Korea's military said Tuesday it detected explosions on 2 cross-border roads connecting the country to North Korea amidst a significant recent deterioration in inter-Korean relations. The South Korean Joint Chiefs of Staff said in a statement that North Korean forces detonated explosives on the Gyeonggi Line and Donghae Line, presumably to block connection roads. North Korean forces also deployed heavy equipment for further operations, the JCS said. There was no damage to South Korean forces, it added. Our military has fired warning shots in the area south of the military demarcation line, the JCS statement said. The military is closely monitoring North Korean activities and has reinforced surveillance and alert posture in cooperation with the U.S., maintaining a state of full readiness, the JCS said. Seoul warned on Monday that Pyongyang appeared to be preparing to destroy the roadways. The North Korean military has been carrying out activities assumed to be linked to explosions on the roads along the Gyeonggi and Donghae lines, JCS spokesman Colonel Lee Sung-jun said. If North Korea undertakes a provocation, we will strongly retaliate in terms of our right to self-defense, he added. North Korean military said last week it would permanently seal off its border with the southern neighbor, cutting rail and road connections and reinforcing defensive fortifications. The Gyeonggi line connects the western South Korean city of Paiju to North Korea's city of Kaesong. While Donghae lines run along the east coast, North Korea has spent months laying mines, removing lights, and dismantling buildings along the 2 routes, Seoul said. Pyongyang said it communicated these intentions to U.S. forces in South Korea to prevent any misjudgment and accidental conflict over the fortification project. Tuesday's explosions followed almost a year of rising cross-border tensions, with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un having declared the two nations as hostile states in December 2023. North Korea sent thousands of trash balloons into South Korea since May, according to tallies released by the JCS. South Korean civic groups also sent balloons into North Korean territory, often carrying rice, essential medicine, and leaflets critical of the regime in Pyongyang. North Korea has repeatedly protested such action and threatening a response. Last week, North Korea accused South Korea of flying drones over Pyongyang and ordered 8 artillery brigades to be ready to open fire across the border, according to state media. Seoul's defense ministry warned that Pyongyang will see the end of its regime if it causes any harm to South Koreans. So, what do we got going on here? Well, we've got South Korea, North Korea tensions rising. Of course, Ukraine, Russia still at it. It does seem that Zelensky may be willing to sit down. I think Putin has expressed in the past he's willing to sit down. And I think the fighting right now is to maybe try to gain a better position at the bargaining table when it comes to those two countries. Israel is still all out, just destroying anybody that has stood up against it in its path, whether it's Iran, whether it's the Houthis, whether it's Hezbollah, the PLO, all the organizations down there. It looks like Israel's just decided, you know what, we're tired of getting attacked every 10 to 20 years. Let's just finish this thing. And Iran seems to be up for it so far. I think depending on the way this election goes, we could see a lot of these conflicts ramping up. I think if Harris gets in office, I don't see much changing between Ukraine and Russia, other than maybe more money going towards Ukraine, more of our hard-earned dollars. So welcome more inflation. But I don't see much changing there. As far as the Israel-Iran portion of it, it'll probably get dragged out more. I think it'll be longer. I think that conflict will be longer. I don't see Biden and or Harris really stepping in to push back on China. I know Walz, Harris's VP, is very close to China. I think he's taught classes over there, and he's been back and forth 20 or 30 times. And I'm not really sure. I haven't heard much on the Biden administration when it comes to the Korea stuff. I think if Trump gets in, I have a feeling Trump, he did visit North Korea. He walked across the DMZ. He shook hands with Kim Jong-un. He's had pretty good relations with Putin. He said that Israel could use all the force necessary to do what it needs to do. So in many ways, I think the South Korea, North Korea thing might be better under Trump. I think China might back off just because Trump's kind of a madman. I think Russia and Ukraine sit down to a table and shake hands. And I think Israel gets more armaments and probably does a lot more damage to its enemies in the Middle East. So kind of a mixed bag of nuts on that front.